Daeho Kim stood in the control room, staring at the massive machine that stretched across the lunar surface. The mass driver was 3 kilometers long, a rail system that could launch containers into space at incredible speeds. At least that was what the official report said. The Galactic Council believed it was for mining. They believed humans were using it to ship ore from the moon to Mars. They were wrong. 100 years had passed since the aliens arrived. Daeho still remembered the stories his grandmother told him about first contact. She was a young woman then, watching the news when the Velan ships appeared in Earth's orbit. The world had panicked. Some thought it was an invasion. Others thought it was salvation. It turned out to be neither. The Velans and their Galactic Council were bureaucrats. They had rules for everything. Rules about technology, rules about weapons, rules about which species could do what. When they scanned Earth and saw humans had fusion reactors and quantum computers, they were surprised. Most species took longer to develop those things. But the Council still classified humanity as a Class 3 developing species. Young, inexperienced, needing guidance. The guidance came with restrictions. Humans could not build certain weapons. They could not research certain technologies. Mass drivers were at the top of the forbidden list. The Council called them planet killers, too dangerous for young species like humanity. So Earth agreed. They signed the treaties. They followed the rules. And they got creative. Daeho's mass driver was legal because it was for mining. The mathematics were simple. Accelerate a container full of ore. Launch it toward Mars, let gravity and trajectory do the rest. The Council inspectors had approved the design 5 years ago. They never asked the right questions. They never asked how fast the mass driver could actually fire. They never asked what would happen if the container was made of tungsten instead of aluminum. They never asked why the targeting computer was accurate to within 10 meters at 300 million kilometers. Chief Engineer Kim. The voice came from behind him. Daeho turned to see Hana Park entering the control room. She wore a military uniform, though her rank insignia was missing. Officially, she was a civilian consultant. Unofficially, she was the UN Space Command's top strategic advisor. Colonel Park, Daeho said, I thought you were still on Earth. I took the fast shuttle. Hana walked to the window and looked at the mass driver. The UN Security Council wants a progress report. How soon can we run a full test? A full test? Daeho felt his stomach tighten. You mean an actual firing? Yes. That's not what this project is for. We're supposed to be launching mining containers. Hana turned to face him. Her expression was hard. Daeho, how long have we known each other? 15 years. Then you know I don't play games. The Velans are squeezing us. Every trade route they control. They charge us double what they charge other species. Every shipment of rare materials we need, they delay by months. They think we're weak. They think we'll just accept it. Daeho said nothing. He knew she was right. Everyone knew she was right. The Galactic Council talked about fairness and cooperation, but Earth always got the worst deals. Always paid the most. Always waited the longest. We need to show them we're not weak, Hana continued. We need to remind them that humans don't back down. By firing a weapon? By demonstrating capability. There's a difference. Before Daeho could respond, another person entered the control room. Taeyang Choi was young, barely 30 years old, with the nervous energy of someone who spent too much time thinking and not enough time sleeping. He carried a datapad and looked excited. Chief Kim, Colonel Park, you need to see this. Taeyang set the datapad on the console and pulled up a chart. I've been running comparisons. Galactic development timelines versus human development timelines. And, Hana asked, we're fast. Really fast. Look at this. Taeyang pointed at the chart. The average species takes 400 to 600 years to develop mass driver technology after achieving spaceflight. The Velans took 520 years. The Korthans took 490. The Meln took 630. How long did humans take? Daeho already knew the answer, but he wanted to hear Taeyang say it. 150 years, and that's with the Council restricting our research. Without the restrictions, we probably could have done it in 80 years. The room went quiet. Daeho looked at the numbers on the screen. They were accurate. He had checked similar data himself. Humanity developed technology faster than any other known species. They always had. There's more, Taeyang said. I looked at warfare development. The time between first spaceflight and first orbital weapons platform. The Velans took 300 years. The Korthans took 280. The Meln took 350. How long for humans? Hana asked, though she smiled like she already knew. 75 years. We put weapons in orbit before we even had permanent space stations. Daeho felt something cold settle in his chest. What are you saying, Taiyang? The young physicist looked at both of them. I'm saying the Galactic Council made a mistake. They classified us wrong. They saw our technology level and assumed we were like everyone else. But we're not. We develop faster. We innovate faster. We adapt faster. He paused. They think we're slow because we're young. But we're not slow. We've never been slow. Hana crossed her arms. The Council still treats us like children. They think 100 years is too soon for us to have advanced weapons. But by our standards, 100 years is a long time. By our standards, Taiyang said quietly, we've been patient. Daeho turned back to the window. The mass driver stretched across the gray lunar surface, a monument to human engineering. He thought about the restrictions, the unfair trade deals, the condescending attitudes from aliens who assumed humanity was primitive. Can we really hit a target at 300 million kilometers? He asked. Yes, Taiyang said. The targeting system is that good. I designed it myself. And the kinetic energy? A 10-ton tungsten projectile at 12% light speed delivers 50,000 megatons of force on impact. That's more energy than every nuclear weapon on Earth combined. Hana stepped closer. Daeho, I'm not asking you to fire at a planet. I'm not asking you to kill anyone. But the Valens need to understand what we're capable of. They need to see that humanity isn't going to be pushed around anymore. Daeho was quiet for a long moment. He thought about his grandmother's stories, about the day the aliens arrived and how everyone thought everything would change. It did change, but not the way people hoped. The galaxy wasn't a place of wonder and cooperation. It was just politics. The same games humans played, but with more players and higher stakes. When do you want to run the test? He finally asked. Hana smiled. Soon, very soon. First, we need to send a message to the Velans. Give them a chance to back down. And if they don't, then we remind them why humans made it to the stars in the first place. Not because we're lucky, not because we're special, but because when someone tells us we can't do something, we prove them wrong. Taiyang looked nervous. This could start a war. No, Hana said. This could prevent one. The Valens push us because they think we can't push back. Once they know we can, they'll stop. Daeho hoped she was right. He looked at the mass driver one more time, then nodded. I'll start preparing the firing sequence. It'll take 48 hours to charge the system and load the projectile. Good. I'll inform the Security Council. Hana headed for the door, then stopped and looked back. Daeho, humanity spent a century playing by their rules. It's time they learned to play by ours. After she left, Taiyang sat down heavily. Do you think this is the right thing to do? Daeho didn't answer immediately. He thought about all the years of being treated as inferior, all the times Earth's requests were denied, all the times the Council looked at humans and saw primitives. I think, he said slowly, the galaxy is about to learn something important. They thought we were late to develop this technology. They're about to realize they were late to recognize what we really are. Taiyang nodded. Together they began running the calculations for a test that would change everything. The Valen border station hung in space like a gray fortress. It was massive, built to intimidate. 6 warships orbited around it, their weapons pointed outward. This was where the Velan Empire controlled all trade routes into human space. Every ship that wanted to pass through had to stop here. Every cargo container had to be inspected. Every fee had to be paid. Ambassador Hyun Kang had been negotiating at the station for 3 weeks. She was tired. The talks went nowhere. Every time she proposed fair trade terms, Overseer Quilmouth would laugh and dismiss her. Every time she asked for lower fees, he would increase them instead. The Valens controlled the routes, and they knew it. Hyun sat across from Quilmouth in the negotiation chamber. The Overseer was tall, with gray skin and 4 arms. 2 of his arms rested on the table. The other 2 gestured as he spoke. Ambassador Kang, your species must understand its place, Quilmouth said. His voice had a clicking sound that the translator turned into contempt. You are new to the galaxy. The fees we charge are standard for all developing species. Other species pay half what we pay, Hyun said calmly. I have the records. Other species have proven themselves trustworthy. Humanity has not. How can we prove ourselves if you won't give us the chance? Quilmouth leaned back in his chair. Perhaps in another century or 2. When you have matured, Right now you are like children. Children must be guided by adults. Hyun wanted to throw something at him. Instead, she smiled. I see. Thank you for your time, Overseer. I will relay your position to Earth. Good. Perhaps your leaders will be more reasonable than you. Quilmeth stood and left the chamber, his guards following behind him. Hyun waited until the door closed. Then she touched the small device hidden in her collar. Did you get all that? A voice crackled in her ear. Every word, Ambassador. Crystal clear. Excellent. Send it to Earth with the rest. For 3 weeks, Hyun had been recording everything. Every insult. Every unfair demand. Every time Quilmeth treated her like a child. The recordings were building a case. Not for the Galactic Council, they wouldn't care. But for humanity. Evidence that Earth had tried diplomacy. Evidence that the Valens refused to negotiate in good faith. Hyun left the station and took a shuttle back to her ship. The vessel was small, a diplomatic transport with minimal weapons. But it had excellent sensors and powerful transmitters. Every night, Hyun sent encrypted files back to Earth. Intelligence reports. Station layouts. Fleet positions the Valens never noticed. They didn't think humans were smart enough for espionage. Across the system, Captain Ji-Woo Lee watched the border station through her ship's sensors. Her vessel, the Silent Wind, was invisible. Its hull absorbed radar. Its engines ran cold. Its transponder was off. Officially, the Silent Wind didn't exist. Officially, humanity didn't have stealth technology. The Galactic Council's records said humans were at least 50 years away from developing stealth ships. The Council's records were wrong. Ji-Woo had been mapping Valen military installations for 2 months. Her ship drifted between asteroids, moving slowly, recording everything. She knew where every Valen warship was positioned. She knew their patrol routes. She knew their weapons capabilities. What she found surprised her. The Valen military was weak. Their ships were old. Their tactics were outdated. They relied entirely on their reputation to keep order. Captain, her sensor officer said, we're detecting another patrol ship entering the system. Mark its position and continue recording. Ji-Woo looked at the map on her screen. Red dots marked Valen military assets. There were hundreds of them in this region, but they were spread thin, very thin. The Valen Empire was huge, but their actual military strength was limited. She understood now why the Valens acted so arrogant. They had to. If other species realized how weak they actually were, the entire empire would collapse. Send the data burst to command, Ji-Woo ordered. Then we'll move to the next observation point. The transmission took 3 seconds. A tight beam of encrypted data, shot toward a relay satellite near Mars. The Valens would never detect it. By the time the signal reached Earth, the Silent Wind would be gone. Back on Luna, Dae-Ho Kim worked through the night. The mass driver was ready. The projectile was loaded. 10 tons of tungsten, shaped like a dart sitting in the launch cradle. The targeting computer was locked on coordinates 300 million kilometers away. Taeyang Choi ran the final calculations. Numbers check out, he said. Trajectory is perfect. Impact point is accurate within 8 meters. 8 meters at 300 million kilometers, Dae-Ho said. That's incredible accuracy. Human engineering. Taeyang smiled, but he looked nervous. Are we really going to do this? That depends on the Valens. Hana Park entered the control room. She had just arrived from Earth on a military shuttle. The Security Council has made their decision, she said. Ambassador Kang is authorized to deliver an ultimatum. What kind of ultimatum? Dae-Ho asked. Lower the tariffs to fair rates within 48 hours or face consequences. They'll refuse. I know. Hana looked at the mass driver through the window. How accurate is this thing, really? Taeyang answered. At 300 million kilometers, we can hit a target the size of a city block. At closer ranges, we can hit something the size of a car. Good, because we're not going to hit the station. We're going to miss it. By about 5 kilometers, Dae-Ho understood immediately. A warning shot. Exactly. Close enough to scare them, far enough to avoid casualties. Then the projectile continues on to hit an empty moon in the system. When it impacts, the explosion will be visible for light years. Every sensor in the region will detect it. And every species will know humans have functional mass drivers. Taeyang said quietly. Hana nodded. The Council banned us from developing these weapons. They said we weren't ready, but we did it anyway and they never knew. That will scare them more than the weapon itself. Deho thought about it. She was right. The mass driver was dangerous, but not as dangerous as human ingenuity. Not as dangerous as humanity's ability to innovate in secret, under restrictions, and still succeed. When does Ambassador Kang deliver the message? He asked. Tomorrow morning, station time. Then we wait 48 hours. And if Quilmeth refuses, then you fire. The next day, Hyun Kang requested another meeting with Overseer Quilmeth. He kept her waiting for 3 hours. When he finally appeared, he seemed annoyed. Ambassador Kang, I thought we finished our negotiations. There is nothing more to discuss. Hyun stood. She was shorter than Quilmeth, but she met his eyes without fear. Overseer, I am here to deliver a message from the United Nations of Earth. You will reduce your tariffs to fair and equal rates within 48 hours. You will cease all discriminatory practices against human vessels. You will treat Earth as an equal partner in trade. Quilmeth's forearms gestured in what the translator interpreted as amusement. Or what, Ambassador? Will you complain to the Council? We are the Council. Will you stop trading? You need our roots. What consequences could you possibly threaten? Military consequences. The room went silent. Quilmeth stared at her. Then he laughed. It was a harsh clicking sound. Military? You have no military. Your species was forbidden from developing advanced weapons. You have mining ships and exploration vessels. Nothing more? Is that what you believe? That is what I know, Hyun smiled. It was not a friendly smile. Then you are mistaken. You have 48 hours, Overseer. I suggest you use them wisely. She turned and walked out of the chamber. Behind her, she heard Quilmeth laughing. His guards joined in. They thought she was bluffing. They thought humanity was weak. They were wrong. Hyun returned to her ship and sent a coded message to Earth. Message delivered. Target is dismissive. Proceed with operation. On Luna, Deho received the confirmation. He looked at Hana. It's done. He refused to even consider it. I expected nothing less. Begin the charging sequence. Deho turned to his team. Start charging the mass driver. Full power. 48-hour countdown begins now. The mass driver hummed to life. Massive capacitors began storing energy. The rail system ran diagnostic checks. The targeting computer confirmed lock on the Valen border station. Taeyang watched the numbers climb on his screen. Chief, at this power level, the projectile will reach 12% light speed. I know. That's enough energy too. I know, Taeyang. The young physicist nodded. He looked scared, but he didn't stop working. None of them did. 48 hours later, Overseer Quilmeth sat in his office on the border station reviewing trade reports. He had forgotten about the human ambassador's ultimatum. It was meaningless. Humans had no weapons. They had no power. They were insects pretending to be dangerous. His communication console beeped. A priority message from Valen High Command. Quilmeth opened it and read the first line. Then he read it again. His forearms began to shake. The message was simple. Human mass driver detected firing from Luna. Projectile inbound your location. Impact in 11 hours. Evacuate immediately. Quilmeth stared at the message. This had to be a mistake. Humans didn't have mass drivers. They couldn't have mass drivers. It was forbidden. He checked the sensor logs. There it was. A projectile. Small. Moving at 0.12 light speed. Aimed directly at his station. For the first time in his long career, Overseer Quilmeth felt fear. He reached for the emergency alert button, but his arms wouldn't stop shaking. The projectile traveled through space at 40,000 kilometers per second. It was dark, cold, and invisible to most sensors. By the time the Valens detected it, the tungsten dart was already 6 hours into its journey. There was no stopping it, no intercepting it, no defense. Admiral Sorahan stood in the command center on Earth watching the tracking screen. A thin line stretched from Luna toward the Valen border station, with a small dot moving along it. That dot represented 10 tons of metal moving at 12% the speed of light. Time to impact? She asked. 5 hours, 17 minutes, an officer replied. Sora nodded. Everything was proceeding as planned. The projectile would pass within 5 kilometers of the station, close enough to show humanity's accuracy, far enough to avoid hitting the station itself. Then it would continue to the dead moon beyond and impact with the force of 50,000 nuclear bombs. She hoped the Valens would understand the message. On the border station, chaos had erupted. Overseer Quilmeth screamed orders at his staff. Alarms blared throughout the facility. The 6 warships broke orbit and began moving away, their engines burning at maximum thrust. "Can we shoot it down?" Quilmith demanded. His military commander, a veteran officer named Vekran, shook his head. "No, Overseer. The projectile is too small and too fast. Our weapons cannot track it. Even if we hit it, the debris would still strike us with lethal force. Then launch missiles. Fire everything! Overseer, the projectile is moving at 0.12 light speed. Our fastest missiles travel at 0.03 light speed. We cannot catch it." Quilmith's forearms grabbed the edge of his desk. How did they build this? How did the humans build a weapon we didn't know about? Vekran had no answer. The Galactic Council's intelligence said humans were decades away from mass driver technology. The Council was wrong. "Evacuate the station," Quilmith finally said. His voice was hollow. "Get everyone to the escape pods. Sir, the trajectory calculations show the projectile will miss us. It will pass 5 kilometers from the station." Quilmith looked at him. 5 kilometers? At that speed? Yes, sir. The shockwave will still damage us. Vekran nodded. Yes, but we will survive. They're sending a message. Yes, sir. They are. Quilmith sat down slowly. His legs couldn't support him anymore. For 200 years he had served the Velan Empire. He had overseen trade routes. He had collected tariffs. He had dealt with dozens of species and none had ever challenged him. The Velans were strong. The Velans were respected. The Velans were feared, but humans didn't fear them. Order all ships to retreat beyond the weapon's path, Quilmith said quietly, and open a channel to the human ambassador. On her diplomatic ship, Hyun Kang received the incoming transmission. She let it wait for 60 seconds before answering. Let Quilmith sweat a little longer. When she finally opened the channel, Quilmith's face appeared on her screen. He looked terrible. His skin was pale gray instead of healthy dark gray. His forearms trembled. Ambassador Kang, he said, please stop the projectile. We will negotiate. We will lower the tariffs. Whatever you want. Hyun kept her expression neutral. Inside she felt a surge of satisfaction. But she couldn't show it. Overseer Quilmith, the projectile cannot be stopped. Once a mass driver fires, the weapon is committed. You have approximately 5 hours before impact. But you said consequences. You said military action. You didn't say you would destroy my station. The projectile will not hit your station, Overseer. Our calculations show it will miss by 5 kilometers. You may experience some structural damage from the passing shockwave, but casualties should be minimal if you evacuate the outer sections. Quilmith stared at her. 5 kilometers? You can aim that precisely? Human engineering is quite advanced. But the Council said, the Council was mistaken about many things. Hyun leaned forward. Overseer, I gave you 48 hours to negotiate. You laughed at me. You called my species children. You refused to take us seriously. I was wrong. I apologize. Your apology is noted. Now let me explain what happens next. The projectile will pass your station and continue to impact the dead moon in your system. When it hits, the explosion will be visible from 40 light-years away. Every species with sensors in this region will see it. They will all know that humanity has functional mass driver technology. Quilmith's face went even paler. The Council will demand answers. Yes, they will. And you will tell them that Earth requested fair trade terms and you refused. You will tell them that Earth demonstrated military capability after exhausting all diplomatic options. You will tell them that Earth's weapons are precise, controlled, and devastatingly effective. The Council will sanction you. Hyun smiled coldly. Perhaps. But first, they will sanction you for provoking a military incident. They will ask why you pushed a species you knew nothing about. They will question your intelligence gathering. They will wonder what else you missed. Quilmith said nothing. He knew she was right. You have 5 hours, Overseer. I suggest you withdraw your fleet and prepare your evacuation procedures. After the impact, Earth will be willing to discuss new trade terms. Fair terms, equal terms, and if I refuse, then the next projectile will not miss. Hyun ended the transmission. She sat back in her chair and allowed herself a small smile. They had done it. Humanity had called the Velans bluff and won. On Luna, Daeho Kim watched the countdown timer. 3 hours until impact. The mass driver was still humming with residual energy. Taeyang stood beside him, monitoring the telemetry. The projectile is on course, Taeyang said. No deviation. The impact point is within the calculated margin. Good. Deho felt tense. Everything depended on accuracy now. If the projectile drifted even slightly off course, it could hit the station. That would mean deaths. That would mean war. But the numbers held steady. Human mathematics was precise. Human engineering was reliable. Hana Park joined them at the window. Quilmeth contacted Ambassador Kang. He's begging us to stop the weapon. Can't be done, Deho said. It's already traveling at 40,000 kilometers per second. There's no way to catch it or redirect it, I know. That's what Hyun told him. Hana looked at the empty launch cradle. How many more projectiles do we have? 4 more ready to fire. We can produce 2 per month with current manufacturing capacity. That won't be enough if the Council decides to retaliate. Then we'll build more mass drivers, Taeyang said. Mars wants one. The Europa colony requested specifications for a smaller version. In 6 months, humanity could have a dozen of these systems scattered across the solar system. Hana nodded slowly. Distributed defense. They can't take them all out at once, that's the idea. They watched the countdown together. 2 hours, 1 hour, 30 minutes. In the Velan system, the 6 warships had retreated to a safe distance. The border station was running on minimal crew. Most personnel had evacuated to emergency shelters or escape pods. Quilmeth remained in his office watching the sensor displays. The projectile appeared on screen 15 seconds before closest approach. It was just a blip moving impossibly fast. Quilmeth held his breath. The projectile passed. 5.2 kilometers from the station. The relativistic shockwave hit a second later. The station's outer ring tore away like paper. Hull sections buckled. Windows shattered. Alarms screamed throughout the facility. But the core structure held. No one died. The projectile continued toward the moon. It covered the remaining distance in minutes. Then it hit. The moon exploded, not completely. It wasn't enough energy to destroy the entire moon. But the impact crater was 800 kilometers wide. Molten rock sprayed into space. The shockwave rippled across the moon's surface, triggering earthquakes and avalanches. The flash of light was brighter than the system's sun for 3 full seconds. On the border station, Quilmeth watched in horror. That amount of energy, that amount of destruction, and the humans had fired it from 300 million kilometers away with surgical precision. His communication console lit up. Incoming messages from Velan High Command, from the Galactic Council, from military intelligence. Everyone wanted answers. Quilmeth didn't have answers. He had only one thought repeating in his mind. What kind of species develops weapons like this in secret? On Earth, Admiral Sora Han addressed the UN Security Council via hologram. Impact confirmed. The test was successful. 0 casualties. Velan border station is damaged but functional. The overseer has agreed to negotiate new trade terms. The representatives erupted in conversation. Some celebrated. Others looked worried. Everyone understood that humanity had crossed a line. There was no going back now. Admiral, the Secretary General said, what happens if the Galactic Council retaliates? Then we fire again, Sora said simply. We have 4 more projectiles ready. We can build more, and we've already sent specifications to our colonies. Within a year, we'll have mass drivers throughout the solar system. Will the Council accept this? They'll have to. They can't stop us without a war, and they know we'll make that war very expensive for them. But can we win a war against the Galactic Council? Sora was quiet for a moment. No, we cannot win. They have thousands of ships. They have resources across hundreds of systems. If they commit to destroying humanity, they will eventually succeed. Then why? Because they won't commit. The Council is bureaucratic. They're slow. They're risk-averse. The Galactic Council chamber on Viridian Prime was ancient. The building was 5,000 years old, with walls made from stone that no longer existed on any known planet. Representatives from 200 species gathered in the circular hall, their voices echoing off the high ceiling. Today, they were all talking about humanity. Elder Counselor Mectran stood at the center of the chamber. He was old even by his species standards. He had served on the council for 800 years. He had seen species rise and fall. He had witnessed wars and peace treaties. He thought he had seen everything. Then humans fired a mass driver. Order. Mectran's voice boomed through the chamber. The conversations died down. We will address this matter systematically. Ambassador Kang of Earth has requested an emergency session. She will speak first. Yun Kang walked to the speaking platform. She wore a simple black suit. No military decorations, no flashy jewelry. She looked small compared to the alien representatives around her, but she stood straight and met their eyes without fear. "Honored counselors," she began. 3 days ago, Earth demonstrated a mass driver weapon system. This demonstration was conducted in response to systematic economic exploitation by the Valen Empire. We exhausted all diplomatic channels. We requested fair trade terms. We were refused. We had no choice but to demonstrate that humanity will not be pushed around. A Valen representative jumped to his feet. "You violated council law. Mass drivers are forbidden for Class 3 species." "We did not violate any law," Hyun replied calmly. "Earth signed a treaty promising not to research certain weapon technologies. We kept that promise. The mass driver was developed as a mining tool. It is classified as industrial equipment, not a weapon. But you used it as a weapon. We used it to launch a projectile. The same way we launch mining containers. The difference is only in the target." The chamber erupted in angry voices. Hyun waited. She had expected this. Let them be angry. Let them shout. Eventually they would have to listen. Mectrin raised his hand for silence. "Ambassador Kang, you play word games. The council knows the difference between industrial equipment and weapons. Does the council?" Hyun looked around the chamber. "Because according to our analysis, the council has been wrong about humanity since first contact. You classified us as Class 3 developing species. You said we were decades away from advanced technology. You were wrong about our stealth capabilities. You were wrong about our manufacturing capacity. You were wrong about our weapons development. The question is not whether we violated your laws. The question is why your laws were based on incorrect information. That got their attention." The chamber went quiet. Hyun continued. "Earth requests immediate reclassification to Class 1 sovereign species with full technology rights. We have earned this through our demonstrated capabilities." A Korthan representative stood. "Your capabilities include building weapons in secret and threatening council members. This is not how civilized species behave." "Really?" Hyun pulled out a datapad. "Because according to council historical records, the Korthan Empire built orbital weapons platforms in secret during your integration period. The Meln Collective developed stealth technology 15 years before declaring it to the council. The Valen Empire maintained a hidden military research facility for 3 centuries. Shall I continue?" The Korthan sat down. No one else spoke. Mectrin watched Hyun carefully. She was good, very good. She had done her research and found holes in everyone's history. The council preached rules and order, but every species had bent those rules at some point. "Elder Counselor," Hyun said, looking directly at Mectrin, "humanity does not wish to be your enemy. We wish to be your equal. We have the technology. We have the capability. All we ask is recognition of what we have already achieved." Mectrin nodded slowly. "The council will discuss your request. You may wait outside." Hyun bowed and left the chamber. The massive doors closed behind her. As soon as she was gone, the chamber exploded in conversation. Mectrin let them talk for a few minutes, then called for order again. "We must address the facts," he said. "Humans built a functional mass driver without our knowledge. They demonstrated precision accuracy at extreme range. They possess stealth technology we cannot detect, and based on their rate of development, they will only become more advanced. The question is, what do we do about it?" The Valen representative spoke up. "We should send the fleet. Destroy their weapons. Show them the price of defying the council. Military intervention?" Mectrin looked at him. "Against a species that demonstrated the ability to hit targets from 300 million kilometers away? A species that develops weapons we don't know about? Do you want to start a war? We would win, eventually. But at what cost?" Mectrin pulled up a display in the center of the chamber. It showed a map of human space and surrounding regions. "Look at their position. Earth is 150 light-years from the nearest council fortress. They are surrounded by weak species who cannot threaten them. They have colonies throughout their solar system. To defeat them, we would need to send a fleet across hostile territory, fight through whatever defenses they have prepared, and subdue every human colony. Even if we win, the casualties would be enormous. So we let them break our laws?" The Korthan asked. "No, we adapt our laws." Mectrin looked around the chamber. "I have reviewed human history. It is disturbing. In their last 5,000 years, they fought 847 major wars. They developed nuclear weapons 42 years after achieving powered flight. They went from basic computers to quantum systems in 70 years. They are fast. Incredibly fast. He pulled up another display showing development timelines. The average species takes 4 to 6 centuries to develop mass driver technology after spaceflight. Humans did it in 150 years. The average species takes 3 centuries to develop orbital weapons. Humans did it in 75 years. They are not like other species. They never have been. A melon representative spoke. Then why did we classify them as Class 3? Because we looked at their technology level at first contact and assumed they would develop at normal rates. We were wrong. Humans do not develop at normal rates. They are exponentially faster than any species in council records. The chamber went silent. Everyone was processing this information. Mectrin continued. I asked our intelligence division to run projections. If humans continue developing at their current rate, where will they be in 1,000 years? 5,000 years? 20,000 years? He didn't need to show the results. Everyone could guess. We have 2 options, Mectrin said. We can try to suppress them through military force, which will be expensive and might fail. Or we can accept reality and integrate them into the council as equals, give them Class 1 status, let them have full technology rights, and hope that by including them in our structure we can moderate their development through cooperation instead of conflict. The Valen representative stood again. You want to reward them for breaking our laws? I want to prevent a war we cannot afford. Mectrin looked at him steadily. Tell me, Representative, after what you saw at the border station, do you really want to fight humans? Are you confident in victory? Are you willing to bet your empire's future on it? The Valen sat down without answering. Mectrin let the silence stretch. Then he called for a vote. The results were not unanimous, but they were clear. Humanity would be reclassified as Class 1 sovereign species. They would have full technology rights. They would be invited to join the Council's Mutual Defense Treaty. After the vote, Mectrin asked to speak with Hyun privately. They met in a small garden outside the council chambers. The garden was beautiful, with plants from dozens of worlds growing together in harmony. Ambassador Kang, Mectrin said, congratulations. Your request has been approved. Thank you, Elder Counselor. But I must ask you something. Please be honest. Mectrin looked at her carefully. When you fired that weapon, did you know exactly where it would hit? Were you certain it would miss the station? Hyun met his eyes. Yes, our calculations were precise. But what if you had been wrong? What if the projectile had drifted off course and destroyed the station? What if you had killed thousands? Then we would have faced the consequences. But our engineers do not make mistakes like that. Such confidence. Based on results, Elder Counselor, we have been launching objects into space with precision for 300 years. We know our mathematics. We trust our engineering. Mectrin nodded slowly. That is what concerns me. Not your weapons, not your technology. Your certainty. Most species develop slowly because they make mistakes. They learn caution through failure. But humans seem to skip that phase. You move from theory to application with minimal testing. How? Hyun thought about the question. Because we are used to stakes being high. On Earth, mistakes meant extinction. The wrong crop, the wrong shelter, the wrong strategy, any of these could destroy a tribe. So we learned to be precise quickly. We learned to innovate under pressure. It is part of who we are. And now you bring that approach to the galaxy. Yes. Mectrin was quiet for a long moment. Ambassador, may I give you some advice? Not as a counselor, but as someone who has lived a very long time. Of course. Be careful with your certainty. The galaxy is vast. There are forces out here you do not understand yet. 10 years had passed since humanity fired its first mass driver. The galaxy had changed, not in obvious ways. The Galactic Council still met on Viridian Prime. Trade routes still operated, and the ancient empires still existed. But beneath the surface, everything was different. Fleet Admiral Dae-ho Kim stood on the bridge of the UNSS Horizon, watching the stars through the viewport. His ship was one of 50 in Earth's deep space fleet. Not a large fleet by council standards, but every ship carried mass drivers. Every ship could strike from extreme range with devastating accuracy. The other species knew this. They treated human ships with careful respect. Admiral, his communications officer said, we're receiving a greeting from the Korthan Patrol. They're clearing us for passage through their territory. Acknowledge their message. Standard courtesy. 10 years ago, the Korthons would have demanded inspections and fees. Now they just waved human ships through. It was easier than arguing. Deho smiled slightly. Respect through strength. It wasn't the ideal way to earn respect, but it worked. On Viridian Prime, Counselor Hyun Kang attended another council session. She no longer wore the title ambassador. Earth had earned a permanent seat on the council, and Hyun was humanity's representative. She was one of 200 counselors, but when she spoke, people listened. Today's discussion was about trade regulations in the Outer Rim. It was boring administrative work, but Hyun participated actively. This was how the council really worked. Not through grand declarations, but through thousands of small decisions that shaped galactic policy. The Velan representative proposed new tariffs on raw materials. Hyun immediately opposed it. These tariffs would disproportionately affect mining colonies in developing systems. Earth votes against this proposal. 3 other counselors sided with her. The Velan representative withdrew the proposal. This happened often now. Yoon had built alliances with smaller species who were tired of being exploited by the old empires. Together, they formed a voting bloc that could challenge traditional power structures. The galaxy was becoming more democratic. The old empires didn't like it, but they couldn't stop it. After the session, Elder Counselor Mectrin approached her. He walked slowly now with a cane. 800 years of life had finally begun to show. Counselor Kang, you are making enemies. I am making the galaxy fairer. Same thing, from certain perspectives. Mectrin sat on a bench in the corridor. The Valens are furious. The Korthons are nervous. You are changing systems that have existed for thousands of years. Systems that were unfair. Perhaps, but stable. Hyun sat beside him. Over the years, she had developed respect for Mectrin. He was old and set in his ways, but he was honest. He genuinely wanted what was best for the galaxy, even if his definition of best was different from hers. Elder Counselor, humanity has been part of the Council for 10 years now. In that time, we have not started a single war. We have shared our technology with allied species. We have improved trade efficiency across 17 sectors. Why do the old empires still see us as threats? Because you change things, Mectrin said simply. Change is threatening to those who benefit from the current system. Then perhaps they should adapt. They are adapting. Just slowly. He looked at her. Hyun, I am old. I will probably die soon. My species lives long lives, but not infinite ones. Before I go, I want to know something. Where do you see humanity in 100 years? 1,000 years? Hyun thought carefully. I see us as partners with all species, working together to explore the galaxy, to solve problems, to build something better than what existed before. And if other species do not want to be partners, then we will build without them. Mectrin nodded slowly. That is what I thought. Humanity does not wait for permission. You see a problem, you fix it. You see an opportunity, you take it. This is both your greatest strength and your greatest danger. Why danger? Because not everything should be fixed quickly. Some problems require time to understand fully. Some opportunities are traps. He stood with difficulty. I hope humanity learns patience before you encounter something you cannot fix with clever engineering. If we encounter such a thing, we will adapt. I hope so. I truly hope so. They parted ways. Hyun returned to her office and reviewed reports from Earth. The news was good. Human colonies were thriving. New technologies were being developed. Trade was expanding, but there were concerning reports too. Some species were forming alliances against humanity, not military alliances yet, but political ones. They feared human influence was growing too fast. On Earth, Dr. Taeyang Choi worked in a laboratory deep beneath the surface. He was 40 years old now, no longer the nervous young physicist from a decade ago. His team had just completed a breakthrough that would change everything. Director Choi, his assistant said, the final tests are complete. The FTL communication system works. Taeyang stared at the data on his screen. Faster than light communication? Instantaneous messages across any distance. The Galactic Council had pursued this technology for 3,000 years without success. Humanity had done it in 12 years. How, he asked. How did we solve it when species with 10,000 years of experience could not? His assistant shrugged. We approached the problem differently. The Council focused on quantum entanglement. We focused on dimensional folding. They tried to make particles communicate. We tried to make space itself communicate. And it worked. Yes, sir. Taeyang sat down. This was huge. Bigger than the mass driver. FTL communication would revolutionize everything. Military coordination, trade, diplomacy. The species that controlled this technology would have an enormous advantage. We need to be careful with this, he said. Very careful. If we release this technology too quickly, it could destabilize the entire galactic economy. Should we keep it secret? No, secrets caused problems last time. But we should share it gradually. First with our allies, then with the Council as a whole. Give everyone time to adapt, his assistant nodded. I'll prepare a phased implementation plan. After he left, Taeyang sat alone in the lab. He thought about Mectrin's warning from years ago. The galaxy is vast. There are forces out here you do not understand yet. Was FTL communication one of those forces? Would it solve problems or create new ones? He didn't know. But humanity would find out. At the edge of explored space, Captain Jiwoo Lee commanded the exploration ship Silent Wind 2. Her original ship had been retired after 10 years of service. This new vessel was larger, faster, and equipped with the latest technology. She was exploring the deep dark, a region of space even the Council avoided. Ancient sensor arrays detected strange signals from this area, but no one knew what caused them. Most species were too cautious to investigate. Humans were not most species. Captain, her science officer reported, we're detecting structures ahead. Artificial structures? Jiwoo looked at the display. There were buildings on a dead planet. Or what used to be buildings. Now they were ruins covered in dust and time. How old? Initial scans suggest at least 50,000 years. Jiwoo felt a chill. 50,000 years ago, humans were still using stone tools. The Galactic Council didn't even exist yet, but someone had built cities here. Deploy probes, full sensor sweep, and prepare a message beacon. If we find something important, Earth needs to know. They spent 3 days scanning the ruins. What they found was extraordinary. The buildings were made from materials that shouldn't exist according to current physics. The technology was far beyond anything the Council possessed. This civilization had been incredibly advanced. What happened to them? Jiwoo wondered aloud. Unknown, her science officer said. No signs of war. No environmental catastrophe. They just vanished. Jiwoo thought about that. A civilization more advanced than the Council, gone without explanation. It was disturbing. She recorded everything and prepared a report for Earth. This discovery would raise questions. Important questions about what else existed in the galaxy. About what dangers might be waiting in the unexplored regions. Back on Earth, Admiral Sora Han received Jiwoo's report. She read it 3 times, then called an emergency meeting with the UN Security Council. We found precursor ruins, she told them. The civilization that built the hyperlanes. They were real. And they were far more advanced than we imagined. What does this mean for humanity? The Secretary General asked. It means we are not the most advanced species in galactic history. Not even close. It means there are levels of technology we have not yet imagined. And it means we need to be careful. Very careful. Should we share this with the Council? Sora considered. Yes, but carefully. Some Council members still fear human advancement. If they learn we found precursor technology, they might see it as a threat. Or they might want to cooperate in studying it. Perhaps. We will need to be diplomatic. The meeting continued for hours. Eventually, they decided to share the discovery with the Council but to maintain control over the actual research. Earth would lead the investigation with Council oversight. It was a compromise. Humanity was learning to work within the galactic system while still maintaining their independence. 3 months later, Daeho stood before the Council and presented humanity's findings. Holographic images of the precursor ruins filled the chamber. The councilors watched in silence. These structures are at least 50,000 years old, Daeho explained.